Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. First, thanks for coming to my channel. I appreciate you visiting. It really helps the algorithm to find my channel if you hit the like button, so if you wouldn't mind before you leave hitting the like button, that helps out a great deal. Or even better, subscribe if you want to. Um, Comments also help, so if you like to leave comments or suggestions, that's great as well. Today's project is actually a variation of the gap ring, but I decided I've always thought about doing a gap ring, and if you want to see my gap ring, I'll put a link up there for you. There's a good video tutorial about that. It's a very pretty ring, I think. I've thought about over the years doing more than one stone with multiple pieces of wire, and then it suddenly dawned on me that it would be kind of cool if we did a pendant out of that, like where it had multiple stones in between those little swirls that happen on the gap ring. So I did a little fiddling around and experimenting, and I came up with a design, and I think it's going to be a cool one. So that'll be our project today. Since it's got multiple stones going in kind of a line, I thought it might be a good Mother's Day project because you could put different birthstones in there, and you could even do more than, because I'm using 4 pieces of wire that are going to be soldered together. So there's 3 gaps in there. So if you keep adding one, it adds another stone. So you could, unless you had like 6 kids or something, then it's going to get to be a pretty big pendant. But you might have to do two 3-stone ones and alternate wearing them. But before we get started, though, I wanted to thank some people. First, my channel subscribers here. We just passed 3,500. We're real close to 3,600. We'll probably pass that in the next couple of days, and that's amazing and really great. So, keep sharing this with people if you like the content. Maybe other people will too. The other group is my patrons over on Patreon, and I have a couple of new ones. I have Pat R, who's been a frequent commenter on my channel for a long time, and then I have Chris C, who has also commented quite a few times. So I'm pleased to welcome them over on Patreon. Building kind of a cool community over there where we share ideas, and I give them exclusive tutorials now and again. There's multiple tiers of membership. You should check it out. If you're interested in that, check the video description down below. There's also some links to other important places associated with me. There's my merch store, my website, which we've been revamping and getting rid of the ads on, so it's much more usable. And there's even a link to buy me a coffee if you just want to give me a tip for my efforts here. So either way, thanks for watching, and let's get started on this project. Okay, so this is basically the piece that I'm basing this off of. When we made the video for this, we called it a gap ring. I never have known what to call this style of ring. I've been making them for years, and I always liked how it had a little kind of a swirl to either side that's kind of flattened out and twisted over. It makes for a nice shape, and it's pleasing to the eye. So I thought it might be fun to try a pendant kind of with this incorporated into it. And so I sketched up some ideas, or an idea, and I think it'll turn out good. Okay, so ignore this on the end here. I'm going to make those neater looking. But basically, when you make those gap rings like that, you end up with a hairpin shape, and then you twist it this way, and it creates that little swirl there. So if I do more than just 2 of them, which I'd normally use to make a ring, you can lay them side by side and create new cavities in between like that. And I thought instead of bending it around into a ring, we could make it into kind of a neck piece. We'll see how that looks. I thought because a lot of times people like the Mother's Day kind of things where you can put a birthstone of your the birthstones of your children in there. This might make a good kind of project for that, because you wouldn't have to do 4 pieces like this, which allows for 3 cavities in there. You could do just 3 of them, and then you'd have 2 cavities, or you could just do 1 and have 1 cavity if you only have 1 child. I suppose you could do more than 3 if you had a whole herd of children, but there's probably going to be a practical limit to it. I'm not sure though. You might have to make yourself 2 or 3 if you have more than 4 kids, I'm guessing. I picked out some stones. I'm not doing this specifically for Mother's Day myself, but I may give it to my mom. We'll see. I was going to try and do kind of an ombre effect where I had clear and then pink and then purple, kind of, so it gradually goes from one to another, maybe with clear down here. The clear and the pink one are CZs. This is a little amethyst. They're all 6mm stones, so maybe do it like that. See how that turns out. I think that'll be pretty. For this stuff, I'm going to use 14 gauge round wire, I think, for the bezels. I'm going to use it's 26 gauge fine silver bezel strip that's 3/16 inch tall, and that'll make for good bezels. For the little, I'm going to make a little lip on the inside of the bezel for the stones to sit on, a step basically, and I'll use 18 gauge round wire for that. All right, let's get started on some bezels maybe. I may just do one in front of the camera and then do the other two off camera, so you don't have to watch me do the same thing over and over again, because they're pretty much the same. Some people have been telling me that they can't hear me sometimes, so I turned up the gain on my microphone a little bit, and I'm trying to remember not to mumble so much. So let me know if I'm doing better. I get so focused on what I'm doing, I forget that I'm filming sometimes, and I start mumbling. It's great getting old. I'm turning into that old guy who mumbles to himself when he's doing stuff. Okay, I'm going to make this into a little square, or a rectangle, or something angular at least. See, I was mumbling again. As always, I use hard silver sheet solder for most things, and My-T-Flux, which is a spray-on flux. Get that from Rio Grande usually. There's another product called Battered Self-Pickling Flux that also is just about the same that I used to use. There you are. I'm just doing a little shaping with the tips of my needle nose pliers here, or chain nose. Prefer. It's pretty good. Goes in there, it's snug. That's kind of what I was hoping for. Now, need a little bit of 18 gauge round wire. Just cut myself a piece so it's a little more manageable. I certainly won't need all of this. I'm going to go make myself a couple of rings to fit right inside of this bezel here, and that'll create a little platform for the girdle of the stone to sit on, if you're new to this. There's a lot of ways to make step bezels. This is just one. You could use a round nose pliers or a bail making pliers, or just wrap this around something if that works best for you. When I do this, I typically cut it a little big, and then I'll remove pieces until it fits in, so I need to snip a little more out of there. If I try and guess right on, a lot of times I'll cut a little bit too much, and then there'll be a little gap in the ring. How embarrassing to have a gap in your bezel ring. That one's nice and tight. I'd probably use this one for the bottom one. So put the other one in first. They're both pretty good, but I think the second one I made is a little bit tighter. So I'll put the first one in, and then I'll put the second one in. I'll try and get them to seat one on top of the other. Push them in there. There we go. When you do solder these in, you want to make sure that the top ring is sitting flat, so that the stone, when it goes in there, sits flat. I know I always say that when I'm doing these videos, but you might not have seen any of my videos before, so. I always, when I'm doing one of these little steps inside of a bezel, I usually solder them in by making a little pile of solder in kind of a circle. I'll flux this and I'll just set it right on top of that, and when it flows it should kind of suck it right up into the seam there. It's kind of slick how it works. Get over there. Alright, so if you got a good solder seam there, then you can just file it flat on the bottom. So it makes a nice little step bezel then. Alright, so I'm going to do that for 2 more of these stones, and then we'll come back and we'll start making the setting part. Alright, there's my 3 bezels. And I measured out about how long I wanted these to be. And I was going to make 2 of them about 3 1/4 inches or 83 millimeters, and 2 of them a little bit longer at 3 3/4 or 95 millimeters roughly. That way I'll use the longer ones for the outer ones, so I have a little excess on the ends here, and that way I think I can, I'm not going to bend them up like this. I think I'm going to make a kind of a bail or a connector on the back of this, so that it doesn't show from the front, and then we'll just put a little tiny jump ring on a split chain. So yeah, let's go that route. So I'm going to cut off 2 pieces that are 83 millimeters and 2 pieces that are 95 millimeters. Okay, so if you haven't watched my gap ring video, which you can watch, I'll put a link up here for you. The way to make these are, for the 2 short ones, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get them straight, and then I'm going to make a hairpin shape out of them, and then I'm going to pound the end of it sort of flattish, so it creates a spot that'll do that little swirl. So I think let's get it straight first. Okay, I can find the center of these guys, at least pretty close. Now the thing about these longer ones, once I find the center, since I want there to be a little extra space on the end of the long one here, I want this not to occur in the center. I want one side to be a little bit longer than the other one, so I'm going to move it off to one side a little bit so that the curve occurs a little bit further over. So if we want to bend this one now, where that other side's a little bit longer, I'm going to move it just a little bit over this way, where I make the bend. And what I want you to do, if you're doing this, is wrap it around something roundish like this, so that you get kind of a hairpin shape. Try and make them as symmetrical as you can. You don't want them to be too different from each other. Now comes the fun part. I'm just going to use a smooth-sided hammer here. You can use a chasing hammer or whatever you have, but what I want to do is I want about just a little bit, maybe about that much of it. I want it to be flattened out some, but I want it to gradually get thicker as it goes back into the round shape here. So thinnest at the end, gradually tapering back into that round shape. I hope you can see what I'm doing it there. Yeah, I'm in camera. Okay, so I'm just going to try and flatten that out. You want to hold these together so they don't, if you start pounding on this end, they're going to start spreading open. So all right. Now, by doing that, we work hardened these really seriously by pounding them flat, so that makes them really stiff and hard. And when I go to bend these, I don't want them to crack or anything, so I'm going to soften the metal back up by annealing. So let's heat those up to the point where they're just kind of a dull red color, and then let them cool off, and then they should be a lot more bendable. So I'm going to go ahead, I use my flat nose pliers for these usually. I grab one of the sides of these up on the, pretty close to the top of the bend there. I'm going to push my right hand with the pliers away from me, but I'm trying to make sure that this thing, it actually bends right up here. It doesn't try and bend down here and down here. I want this curve to kind of stay up at the top of that piece of wire. So when you look at it, it shouldn't go way up like that. It should just be a little swirl like that. And we're trying to get them to where they lay flat on the ground like that. Or on the table, I should say, not on the ground. So, and the important thing is, if you did the right one away from you the first time, you need to make sure that you do all of them with the right one away from you. Otherwise, they will not fit together. You could do it the opposite way, but make sure to do all of them the opposite way if you do that. See, and now I'll create that gap for our bezels to go in, right here. I have to think about this. I think I have to do these ones the long side. So going the long side on this side, I need to do the long side. So that I had that one situated like this, and I bent this one away. For the second one, I think we got to situate it like this and bend the long one away from us. That way we end up with an extra long side sticking out on either side like that. So my next step, if you see my drawing, I kind of curved them a little bit. Now on the initial drawing I left these ones straight pretty much. This is, I did a prototype sort of with just bending some wires. And I left this side straight and it looked pretty good, but I think I may curve it just a little bit so that the necklace, where it attaches, it flows nicely into there. But first, let's get them straight, and then we'll get them to where they bend a little bit. Keep these lined up. Is that going to change? I think I know how I'm going to do it. I'm going to make each of these slightly curved upwards like this. See how that looks. Then put this in here, like that, and then get this to match the curve. Got a little overzealous on this one, I think. One challenging part about this is going to be a little hard to polish in these areas here. So I may, before I put the bezels in, I might actually clean that up with the, at least with the Dremel, so it's nice and smooth. Is it perfect? Probably not. Is it good enough? Probably. Okay. So, I think once I flux this, I think the best bet would be to pick a little right at the ends where these come together. I'll try to do it really steady so I don't get a lot of slop in the front part there. And it should just kind of wick up along there as long as we flux it really well. So. Make sure this is really nice and crusty because I really want that solder to flow up and down that seam. That'll make for a nice clean solder joint, hopefully. Quite a bit of metal here, so we have to eat the entire piece even though we're going to be applying solder in just a couple of places. See it runs up there. Yeah, a little bit more on that one. I need this one to go up further because this one goes up pretty far. This goes up pretty far. Both of these need to be a little bit further along, so I'm going to add a little bit more of those. That looks a little more in line, I think, as far as how the solder flowed up those seams there. It's a little more symmetrical. So I didn't want it to have one side way different than the other. Okay, I'm going to let that pickle for a while, and then I'm going to clean it up some, and then I'm going to solder those bezels in, and we'll figure out how to do the little connectors for the chain. So shot one of my bezels behind my workbench where I can't reach, so I had to make a new one. So, I did a little cleanup on this this piece here. It's going to be hard to polish in between there, so I thought I'd do some pre-polishing. See how that worked. Okay. And then, like I said, I remade a bezel. So I think, let's see if we can get these guys in here now. It's really about I want it like that. So I think probably pick a little solder right there, and right there, because that's a little easier to clean up than other spots. And then if I need to, I'll do it elsewhere as well, but I may not need to. So, oops. just for security's sake, I think I'm going to solder it right there, there, and there. So it's, and I know they're not going to come off of there. Maybe. Okay, I think that's all floating over there. Let's cool that off. Now we got to figure out the end pieces here. I think what I might do is measure an equal distance in and make a file mark. So, and then we can bend it and then bend it again, and we'll see. Maybe that'll work. How about, where's my little ruler? I think about 7 millimeters, 7 or 8 millimeters there. I'm going to make a little mark. There. Same thing on this one. Okay, and then I just need a little bit of space for that ring to fit in, so I'm going to, let's go about 3 millimeters, maybe 2 millimeters. Let's do 2. So 2 more millimeters also. And now I'm going to file a notch there. And also right here. So I think I'm going to bend it in 2 spots so it creates kind of a triangle and then tapers back into this. Let's see how that looks. In order to get these to stick nicely, I need to make sure they're touching. I think I'm just going to push this into this so I don't have to worry about anything moving around on me. This is called a magnesium block if you've never seen one before. Get off of there. This is solder. They're just a softer surface you can kind of push stuff into. That way nothing will move around too much. And I can just pick the corners and that right there on each of these. So again, I'm going to use these little tiny pieces of solder to cut. a little more to that one because I want to make sure it's a good solid solder joint. Okay, I think that's pretty much it, so I am going to go ahead and throw this in the pickle, let it clean up a bit, knock off some of this magnesia block. We'll polish it, set the stones, and then see how it looks on a chain. Okay, so I did some polishing and cleaning up and everything, and I think I'm ready to set the stones. I actually added an extra ring in each of these because normally I would file them down lower, but these little swirls in between are going to be problematic if I get them too low, and so I just decided to add an additional ring to each one, and that worked out about right. So we'll go ahead and set these. Set faceted stones and bezels. I usually dimple them straight across from each other a little bit with the side of the bezel here. Side of the pliers. Losing my words apparently tonight. Okay. I just want to check to make sure it's still sitting flat. It has a tendency, if you push too hard on one side, it'll push it up on the other side. So you got to do it in little stages in order to get it to kind of stabilize. And then you can start filling in the gaps once it's sitting comfortably like that. Once you got it sitting stable, you can really start kind of rolling it over the top of the stone. Once you get it sitting down, then you can do the burnishing stage. That's where you rub the top edge so it's pushing it down the rest of the way. Once you got it rubbed down nice and smooth, then you usually give it a little poke from behind to make sure it's in there really securely. So let's do the pink one. So I'm going to tighten my bezel a little bit there. Probably do a little more cleanup on that. That's pretty nice. So, like I said earlier, split a chain. Let's see, I'll just put these on backwards a bit. The right hand should be the clasp side. So, I just attached split jump rings like that. So I should be able to loop it over that like that. Let's close it up. Make sure it's tight. Looks good. So we got kind of this piece here, and I'll finish cleaning it up, and we'll take some good pictures and call it a day. Okay, well that was a 3-stone necklace piece. Not quite sure what we're going to call it yet, but like I said, it might make a good Mother's Day present if you wanted to make your mom something. Thank you again for watching. If you wouldn't mind, make sure to hit the like button before you go. You know, if you want to help out the channel a little bit, you could buy me a coffee over here. And if you like this video, make sure to watch one or two other ones. I think there's a lot of valuable content here that you might benefit from. I've tried to make a lot of stuff that's beginner kind of level as well as intermediate and advanced, so there's kind of a mix of things. Even if you're really advanced at this, you might find some ideas here that you could, you know, that might inspire you to do something different too. So check out some videos, subscribe to my channel. I'm glad you came. Thanks for watching. Happy silversmithing. Take care.